5915. We'll begin with this day this morning. What's this day saying? Starts with Oyo. Terrorists killed Michael Deakin to force government to a deal. Orire principal says. If you've seen the video of how she recounted the ordeal, oh my God, like my heart sank every time she spoke. But, she had to tell us what exactly went on. She relieves harrowing experience of how they walked for hours in the bush. Makinde assures pupils, teachers full support as military hands over victims. NHRC demands renewed push to free all kidnapped victims across Nigeria. NOA urges unity against insurgency. Hails security forces over rescue operation. All of this you'll find on page 9 of this day. And still with this day, appeal court affirms ruling barring INEC from recognizing Mark-led ADC congresses. Congresses, in quote. ADC judgment didn't affect our primaries. Propaganda can't change the law, says Atiku. Party dismisses rival portal claim. Well, still on page 9, all of these stories. Looking at top of this day, from this week to this day, to Arise News Channel and Leke social media platforms, a bold generational statement in journalism commemorates founding. Shonala pens tribute to this day, we can do it. Well, you'd also see pictures here. Makinde receives a pupils from the Nigerian Army, and that's it from this day, this morning. Moving to The Nation. The Nation says principal kidnappers beat up pupils, chained teachers. My God. How the operation went by GOC. Makinde's 6th probe. A very bold statement yesterday from Makinde. We'll talk about that later. Well, still with The Nation newspaper, federal government reverses WAEC NECO registration fee hike. Someone said, at what point were they even thinking about a hike? We'll get into all that later. Forgery charge, Adeyemi may not appear in court. Fake agency chief alleges threat to life. 6 independent probe. Okay. Appeal court to INEC, don't recognize ADC congresses by Mark-led National Working Committee. And you look at the top of The Nation, Shetima, I wept at Buhari's bedside in his last moment. It is well. Disco's kick against next CapEx account order. And court rejects Shore's request for long adjournment. OPEC predicts positive economic outlook for Nigeria. All Nigerians want to see is how does it look in our pockets as you do your own outlook. That's it from The Nation. Daily Sun starts with leads with appeal court ruling. ADC kicks, heads to Supreme Court, rejects judgment affirming High Court ruling, barring INEC from recognizing state congresses. Faction uploads Oba Bakindo as president, vice president candidates. Party chieftains cry wolf as Atiku accuses Electoral Commission of aiding anti-opposition agenda. Well, if you're a member of ADC, all I can say is it is well. And still with Daily Sun, 56 days with kidnappers or your principal recounts ordeal. Daily Sun reports that on page 4. NUT demands security beef up around schools, implementation of Safe School Initiative. I concur to that. Raises concern over abduction of York headmaster. 6 urgent rescue. Well, still with Daily Sun, State Police making the rounds this morning. Tinubu prioritizing Nigerian safety, not re-election, according to Kalu. Obi bemoans renewed killings in Benue Plateau. That story is on page 26. Illegal mining, money laundering, fueling insecurity. This is coming from the House of Reps. And fake agency PFIPC chair, or should I say former or fake chair. My life in danger, cries Adeyemi, vows to open can of worms. At this point, sir, please throw it open. It's 8:35. It's Clean Beat 91.5 FM Abuja. Moving to The Guardian this morning. The Guardian says opposition candidates in turmoil as INEC nomination window closes. Taking a look at more, you see Senate tightens grip on MDAs as 34 trillion naira duty waiver probe exposes revenue gaps. Well, stories continue on page 3 of The Guardian. Oil climbs to $80 as Trump reinstates Iran port blockade, imposes 20% charge on cargo in the name of trying to protect Strait of Hormuz. Oh my God. Nigerians, we're in trouble because what that means is hiking prices again. What we've been begging the federal government to help us bring down. It felt like we made progress last week, but these guys don't want us to breathe, right? Cancer claims over 26,000 lives daily. This according to WHO report. We'll delve into that report maybe tomorrow. You'd also see here, Disco's protest next new CAPEX revenue directive. Adeyemi is still saying, and in alleged threat to life, begs Tinubu for independent probe. Atiku Obi hails suspension of 50,000 WAEC NECO fee hike. How much did I pay for WAEC again? Can't even remember. But I can tell you it was quite, very small. Still with The Guardian, Orire Makinde 6 UN probe into abduction of pupils, teachers. We'll hear from our analyst this morning what he thinks about that. Dirty streets, how poor infrastructure, policy inconsistency worsen Lagos waste crisis. That's according to news analysis on page 4 of The Guardian. Finally, from The Guardian, Niger Delta stakeholders urge release of Bayelsa communities 80 billion naira compensation. We go to Vanguard this morning. Vanguard leads with Orire abduction. That's what everyone's talking about. We should, right? Children were beaten, teachers chained. Alamo principal says, you'd also see here, we're taking some of them, but some more that you haven't heard. They ate cocoyam noodles drank from waterfall for 56 days. Victims' relative says we were forced to trek through forest at night. Victims hidden inside a cave close to waterfall. And Makinde 6 UN probe into abduction. The pictures and photographs are here during the handover to the governor yesterday. And you'd also see Strait of Hormuz, US to reinstate Iranian port blockade, impose 20% passage fees. And appeal court affirms order barring INEC from recognizing Mark's leadership. A judgment won't affect ADC candidates, party insists. Atiku is heading to Supreme Court, insisting that ADC's ticket intact despite court ruling on Congresses. All of this, issues you find on page 5 of Vanguard. How police uncovered fictitious agency. This is according to a document. You find the story on page 9 and 28 of Vanguard. It also says, I borrowed 400 million naira to secure PFIPC appointments. This is according to Adeyemi. It feels like the kind of worms will never end. We just keep digging in and we find more things. But this is according to him. I borrowed 400 million naira to secure PFIPC appointment. And Buhari's first anniversary, Tinubu Gowon, governors, ministers pay tributes. Finally, from Vanguard, when flood waters recede, health crisis begins, physicians warn. Take care of the kids around you and everyone. Let's see what the Punch is saying. The Punch leads with Oyo abduction. President he slams Makinde over demand for UN probe. Was waiting for that one. That didn't take too long, did it? Makinde playing bizarre politics, weaponizing anything against the federal government, says presidency. This isn't politics or your abduction too grave for local probe alone, says Makinde. He's insisting. And bandits killed 2 teachers in captivity, principal reveals. Federal government hands over victims to governor. Let's see if we're taking more from the Punch. You'd also see here Dangote dumps Naira begins petrol sale in dollars. Federal government granted 34 trillion naira import duty waivers in 2025. I hate to be Oliver Twist, but can we ask for more? Veterans meet CDS, demand 250,000 naira minimum pay for soldiers. Downpour cripples Lagos, flood submerges cars, strands motorists. And a very sad story from yesterday of how flooding swept away a 5-year-old girl somewhere in the southeast. I couldn't stay long on that report because it affected me so much. It feels like every single year we talk about the fact that flooding is coming, but it feels like we're not doing too much to avert it. It's so sad. And finally, from the Punch, oil tops $80 as Trump revives Iran blockade. That's it from the Punch. And before we go on a break, Daily Trust. Daily Trust leads with ADC heads to Supreme Court over Congresses. Buhari treated everyone equally, says go on. And ICPC won't indict Bajabiamila, says Phantom Counsel GG. How does he know that? Okay. Alleged certificate forgery, court fixes July 21st for ex-minister's Naji's trial. 5 days after, Kafi gets bail in alleged defamation case. And Dangote dollar sales fuel hike fears. God a beg. Well, these are the stories we're tracking at this time. When we return, Dr. Yobosa is standing by. He's a senior editor This Day Newspaper Group, and he's here to tell us more. Stay with us. Good morning.
Drugs bring heartache and pain. That's why we're doing this campaign. They draw you in, thrust you out, and leave you begging for mercy, for currency, and that one last drag with no dignity. Drugs have no gain. They bring nothing but shame. Reach out, seek help. That's why we're doing this campaign.
This message is brought to you by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA.
This is The Round Table with Itoan.
Clean Beat 91.5 FM Abuja, where music meets clarity, is 8:43. The roundtable discussion is here. WhatsApp, as usual, is 09030005915. Well, this morning we look at the covers of newspapers. We've gone through the headlines, and our analyst is here as we delve into the stories one after the other. Which one bothers us first? Don't worry. We'll take it as they come. But first of all, let me welcome a senior editor, This Day Newspaper Group, Dr. Iyobosa Owogaren. You're welcome to the program.
Good morning, Joe.
Good morning to you. It's great to have you live in the studio. We've had you all, over the phone, but you're here live with us. It's good. It's great to have you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
All right. How's the weather? Hope you're enjoying it. I know this is like your best weather, right?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Everyone's enjoying it.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Yobosa, a lot to begin with, but let's start with the obvious, which is the governor of your state coming out to, say that there has to be a UN probe for the abductions that went on in Orire, within Orire community. That's one, and also the very horrific experience that the principal, spoke about, what they went through, what the kids went through, what they had to endure during 52 days in captivity. And the presidency also responding to the governor, saying that you're playing politics. It's not what you should be doing. Help us understand what the heck is going on, if we can put it that way.
Yeah. From the view expressed by one of the victims of the kidnapping, I'm talking of the teacher, one of the teacher who survived the incident. He gave a very terrifying experience. What they went through in the hands of the kidnappers. Said they were forced to trek for 100. kilometers.
Kilometers, yes.
Midnight. Imagine those children who are less than 7, 8, 6. Were forced to trek for long, almost about 10 to, several kilometers.
Yeah.
In the midnight. And he also told us that one of the teacher was killed. I'm sure we all saw the video. It was very
Very
horrifying.
horrific.
And so he was because he wanted to force the government to negotiate with them. And when the government is negotiating, or where the families of victims are negotiating, you know what I mean by that. We have to exchange money. But unfortunately, the security refused to play ball. They said that they would not pay any ransom, and that they would do everything to rescue the victims. So it was really terrifying, and we expect that those who have been victims of kidnappers, have also expressed such a horrific experience. So I think the whole idea is that one should pray not to fall into victims of these animals, because they are not human beings. They behave as if they don't belong to this world. So, and we thank God they've been released,
Yes.
or they've been rescued by the military intelligence. Combinations of the DSS, the military, the soldiers, and the civil defense. But unfortunately, along the line, some security agencies paid the supreme price.
Yes.
Or in an attempt to secure the release of those children, they paid the supreme price.
Yeah.
And we pray that God will repose their soul.
We lost about 6 of them, right?
6 of them.
Yes.
One lieutenant, 2 Amotekun, I think about other military guys. So in the process, the victims also, I think they also lost about 2 of them.
Yes.
The 2 teachers.
2 male teachers.
Yes. One of them was killed during the when they were trying to kidnap them from the school. So, and that is that. But unfortunately, both the federal government and the state government are trying to introduce politics into it, and that is very unhelpful. And that shouldn't be the focus of the conversations right now. Of course, don't forget that when those children were kidnapped, along with the teachers, the federal government blamed the state government, Makinde, and said Makinde was not proactive enough, and that was what led to the kidnapping of those children. And now that they have been released, Makinde said, look, the responsibilities of securing, the entire nation rest with the federal government, because they control the security agencies. They control the police, they control the DSS, they control the military, they control the civil defense. That they had a responsibility of maintaining, of ensuring that every citizen in this country is safe. So that was the situation. So when you are blaming Makinde, Makinde also has a responsibility to also defend himself, and that's exactly what is happening between the state government and the federal government. Of course, Makinde introduced a different dimension to it yesterday during the state broadcast, where he was whipping up this conspiracy theory, and that something must have happened, and that the federal government or other security agencies or some group of people should know how those children were kidnapped, and asking the foreign agencies like the UN and the other global human rights organizations to dip into what actually happened, those who were responsible for the kidnapping of those victims.
Is it the responsibility of those groups to come into your state to investigate, or still within the purview of security agencies like the police?
Like I said, they're just playing politics. Because even during the broadcast, he said that that call is not to undermine the capacity of the security agencies.
Exactly.
Because I listened to his broadcast.
Yes.
And he said his call on an international organization, another human rights organization, is not to undermine the capacity of the security agencies, but just to help also unravel what led to the kidnapping of the children. And so that's exactly what he said. Like I said, they are just playing politics. Don't forget that this thing is coming up at a time when both the state government and the federal government are preparing for elections. And you remember before now, Makinde also whipped up these conspiracy theories that he declared his presidential ambitions on the day,
and the next day,
less than 24 hours, those children were kidnapped. So it's just part of conspiracy theory. It's just part of politics on the side of the state government and the federal government. And don't forget, when the Chibok girls happened during the President Goodluck Jonathan, everybody blamed the federal government for not
being proactive.
But when this didn't happen, they are trying to blame the state government. You see the irony of the whole thing, and I think that is exactly why Makinde is also fighting very hard to defend himself. To say, look, I am the governor, but I'm not. I don't have control over the security agencies, and it is the federal government that that has control over security agencies, and they also have responsibility to defend and ensure that everybody is safe in our country.
That's right.
So they are just playing politics.
Okay.
It's mere politics.
I also like the fact that the NUT has, been speaking the last couple of weeks, insisting on the Safe School initiatives. But again, how do we ensure that our governors are living up to this tax?
You see, if you look at the incident in it's just one out of hundreds of incidents. There are
Exactly.
some incidents that happened that we are even
They were not
aware of.
reported.
That were not reported. Don't forget that the issue in Borno, the state there, the issue in maybe I think in Yobe is also there, and so those children have those victims have not been released, and so there's need for us to keep on asking both the state government and the federal government, including the local government, to be more proactive, because whether we like it or not, the local government authority also have a responsibility to ensure that they also find a way to be proactive in terms of securing our schools.
Yes.
Because just yesterday I also learned that why those Oriri victims were released, another principal was also kidnapped in your state. So these criminals are not going to relent, because kidnapping has become one of the lucrative business that we have in Nigeria today. They are sure that when you kidnap and when people are able to pay ransoms, overnight you become a billionaire. Or a millionaire. So people who want to, stick to that. The criminal want to stick to that. There are also some, political dimension to some of these issues. Election is coming. People want to ensure that they discredit the current federal government, and because security issues is very emotional, and when you begin to give the impression that the government is incapable of securing life and property, and it has some political implications. So I think it is a responsibility, like you said, on the part of the federal government and the state government and local government, to protect lives and property. Imagine some governors collecting as much as 1 billion naira every month for security votes. So rather than waiting for the federal government, they are closer to the people. They should also use part of the money to ensure, the safety of people in their domain. You can't just be collecting almost 800 million, 1 billion naira every month for security votes, and we don't get to see what you are doing with such huge amount of money. So the government, whether they control the security or not, the governors also have responsibility. Some governors are doing very well along that line. You are aware of what the Kogi State government is doing.
Yes.
You are aware of even the governor of Edo State, what they are doing, and some other governors across the country.
And the good thing about some of these governors is that they are collaborating with their other governors, that their colleagues,
exactly,
to
like
protect the
like for
borders.
example, look at the Kogi and Edo State government. They are collaborating. Look at Oyo and Lagos State government. They are collaborating. I think that's exactly what some governors need. Rather than crying, "Oh, we don't control the security agencies," but what are you doing within your own limit to also secure life and property in your state? I think that is the question we should be asking the governors and the local government chair.
Well, still with the still matters of security, Obi bemoans renewed killings in Benue and Plateau State. It feels like we do not have time to get some rest or relief from this part, because it's always heartbreaking when you get to hear killings in this part of the country.
That the killings in Benue and Plateau, to be precise, is becoming a recurring decimal.
Yes.
Just about a few days ago,
Yes.
we're told that some bandits also kill up to about 10 or 12 persons in Benue State. We don't even know what is responsible for that. I think the security agencies, they've done all they could, to ensure that they stop that. I mean, the senseless killings in Benue and Plateau State. There was a time even the president visited Benue State.
Yes, I visited Plateau as
and
well.
Visited Plateau and had a town hall meeting with every stakeholders, and to find how they can solve the problem. But it appears the whole thing is not. We're not getting the solution. we don't actually know what is happening. It's only the security agencies that can tell us what is happening in Benue and Plateau. Is it politics? Is it farmer headers clash that as we are being told almost on a daily basis when the incident happen? And if it is a farmer headers clash, if it is it's about land, if it's about a reprisal attack, or you attack me the next day, they also will attack. I think the security agencies, the state government and the federal government have a responsibility to ensure that we put a stop to this.
Is this where state policing comes into play?
Yes. Like I said, I have my reservation over the state police, whether the state police we switch off these killings in
less than 24 hours.
States, yeah.
Yes.
So I doubt, but let's see. I think there's a near consensus that we need a state police, and so that the government can be able to be more proactive, manage security situations in their country. I mean, so in their state.
In their state.
So let's hope the state police will solve the problem.
Well,
but
you are not wrong to say in their country, because a lot of Nigerians are saying that state governors will turn their own states and their security into the country.
So let's see what happens.
Yes.
But I think there's already a consensus. Just about a few days ago, Arise this day also organized a town hall on this issue.
Okay.
And every person's, the stakeholders, the consensus at the end of that town hall was that we need a state police.
Okay.
But we should be able to put certain things in place to ensure that the state police, performs very well, so that we don't go back to various states and repeat what is happening at the federal level. Because
which will make no sense.
Will make no sense. So I think there were several suggestions: financial autonomy, recruitment process, training process, and ensure that the state police are well funded. I think the fear is that, and we also find a way to also put in place
Checks.
to avoid checks to avoid the governors, using the police for political reasons. Because if at this level, when the governors have so much power, and they are pressing their opposition, I mean their opponent, when it comes to politics, imagine when you give them a state police. So there were suggestions on how to avoid such things. But let's hope at the end of the day, there was also suggestion that there should be a kind of public hearings so that other stakeholders can make their input. This idea of rushing to pass the bill, to amend the constitution, to amend the constitution, to give room for state police without getting the input of other stakeholders will not occur well. Because it's like, as we have now, the political elite are talking to themselves on how state police should be created. Other stakeholders, millions of Nigerians, are not being carried along. They are not even see the amendment bill that you are proposing. So they should throw it open so that Nigerians will have access to it and also make their input. So that at the end of the day, what we're going to have is a very powerful amendment that will solve the problem of insecurity
at the state level,
at the subnationals. So I think that's exactly what many people suggested during the town hall.
That's interesting. All right, if you're just joining us, this is Clean Beats 91.5 FM Abuja, and it's the round table. It's 8:59, and we're still speaking to Dr. Yobasa Owogare, who is a senior editor at This Day newspaper group. All right, Dr. Yobasa, moving away from issues with security, let's talk about the man in the eye of the storm right now. Speaking about Adeyemi, who has been alleging threat to life, begging the presidency for an independent probe, and also saying that he paid about 400 million to secure his place with the fake agency. All of this, and he also says that he will open up a can of whether cans of worms or a can of worm. I don't know how many, but it feels like it's never ending. What do you make of all of this?
Well, when people keep on referring to it as fake agency, I don't actually understand what they are talking about.
What they mean? Okay.
Because if you look at how this guy operated before the whole thing, was revealed, you will understand that a lot of people, several institutions were involved in this kind of a thing. Let me give you an example. The guy was given an appointment letter. Although they said the letter is fake. It was given office space at the Federal Secretariat by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. In other words, the SGF is also aware. It was a staff, almost about 300 staff were recruited for him by the head of service. So in other words, the head of service
Is aware.
is aware. And a bank account was opened at the CBN for the agencies, which means that the Central Bank of Nigeria is aware. And almost about 1.3 billion naira was approved for him in the current appropriation act. In other words, the National Assembly
Is aware.
is aware. And the guy has traveled outside the country through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, met with different diplomats. You know, he was invited for a function. Even as a matter of fact, the EFCC also invited him for a function. The National Assembly invited him to come and defend his budget. So within all these things, how do we come to a conclusion that agency was fake? Yes, people can say it's fake because it was not recognized by law. But the truth of the matter is that several government agencies, senior government officials were involved. So if we are to get to the root of the matter, if it is not to, give some of these people who mentions a soft landing, I think that, like the man rightly suggested, there should be an independent probe, because getting the ICPC to get to the root of the matter, I doubt whether they'll be able to achieve that. We need an independent probe where other people cannot, other institutions, other non-governmental institutions can also be part of that probe, so that we get to the root of the matter. If you look at the whole thing, if the ICPC is to do a thorough job, I can assure you that many hairs will roll from the office, from the CBN, from the office of the head of service, from the SGF, even from the presidency, from the National Assembly, who approved 1.3 billion naira in the current appropriation law. Many hairs will roll. But I think, it's not him alone that is saying that we should need an independent probe. I think some civil society groups, some media houses are also saying we need an independent probe to be able to get to the root of the matter, because it's a scandal. Not just affecting the man himself, it's also affecting the image of the entire country. And in a country where we have several institutions, somebody could forge a letter and get all these things done. More importantly, open an account with the Central Bank of Nigerians. You know what document you require to open a bank? To open an account with CBN?
You must have gone through a lot of processes.
A lot of things. You must have gotten a letter from the office of the SGF. You must have gotten an approval from the presidency. For you to open an account with CBN, you need a lot of documents, and those documents came from government officials, government institutions. So we must get to the root of the matter.
What do you think about the presidency clearing Gbajabiamila of any involvement with this? It feels like it just says that he's not involved, because he first of all started out with chief of staff and Adeyemi, but at some point the presidency cleared Gbajabiamila from the issue, and then the focus now is just on Adeyemi to answer these questions.
Yes, exactly.
And then he also coming back to the president to say, we need an independent, probe on this matter.
If you look at the whole thing, when the whole thing happened, I don't want to put your stations in trouble, but if you look at the whole thing, it is just that it was between Gbaja and the man himself, and the man claimed he paid over 400 million naira to who, I don't know, but I think there are insinuations here and there that he paid 400 million naira. But mind you, this Adeyemi is not the first time telling Nigerians that they pay huge amount of money to get some juicy government appointments. The story is there everywhere, and that perception is very popular among Nigerians. Many Nigerians pay millions of naira to secure juicy job under this present government. Like I said, it's a scandal. So when Adeyemi was also saying, he said he paid that 400 million naira through somebody, and that person was reported to have died in a fire incident in a hotel. I don't know where you understand.
Yes.
Somebody stayed in a hotel. There was fire incident in that hotel. Only him died.
Yes.
We are not aware of the hotel where the persons
or any report that showed that there was any fire.
So as if there was only fire. How come it was only that guy that died in that hotel?
That entire hotel.
So there's so many secrecy surrounding the whole thing, and that is why I said we need an independent probe. Whether the ICBC will be able to do that, well, let's give them the benefit of doubt. If they can do that, fine. But like I said, we must get to the root of this matter, so that in future, we should not have this kind of a thing. It's scandalous,
It's
and
scandalous,
it's not
yeah.
good for the image of our country.
All right, still the round table as 5 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour was to have Dr. Yoba sat with us this morning. All right, moving to this one, appeal court ruling ADC kicks heads to Supreme Court. Atiku has been talking tough, insisting that, you know what, this is going to happen. We're going to be on the ballot come 2027. But the issues leading up to 2027 for the ADC, for the NDC, at some point, it looks like citizens can't even keep up anymore.
It's politics.
It's politics.
It's
Okay.
politics. There are some governments who are in governments that the government is in power. They will not sit by and put their hands and allow the opposition people to hijack power from them.
Okay.
So there will be so many politics around. But what I would like to know, the issue we are currently facing is a judicial matter. And so no matter our position, at the end of the day, it is the same judiciary that would determine the entire issues. Because if you look at the whole issues, after the appeal court judgment, after the appeal court judgment yesterday, there has been so many reactions by lawyers. Even lawyers, if you have an issue, a legal matter, you invite 20 lawyers, they will give different opinion to that matter. Let's give a little background. When David Mark led interim committee were preparing for a national convention to elect their officials, there was a court order. I'm talking of court order by the Federal High Court saying, oh, what you are about to do is illegal. And it was order restraining them from going ahead with the conventions. Like people will say, even if that judgment is given by an insane judge, you have a responsibility to obey that court order until a superior court
overrules
overrule or set that judgment aside.
aside.
But rather than appeal against that judgment, they went ahead and conduct the conventions, both from the world, local government, from the state congresses, and to the national conventions. So in other words, they disobeyed a competent order. They disobeyed an order of the competent court of law. So at the end of the day, the court declared the conventions illegal. So yesterday, the Court of Appeal, they went to the Court of Appeal. Yesterday, the Court of Appeal, in a judgment, although there was a split judgment, but the majority judgment said it was wrong for David Mark and his group to have disobeyed the court order by going ahead with that convention. So at the end of the day, so upholding, they upheld the judgment of the Federal High Court. But the split judgment said, look, it was an internal matter, and there's no court that can look into the matter. But the truth of the matter is that the court has a responsibility to ensure that even if it's an internal matter, the court has a responsibility to ensure that you keep to your constitution of your party. So when a group of people now violate the constitution of their own political party, in my own view, the court has a responsibility to entertain that issue. And that's exactly what they did yesterday. They are not saying whether what they did is wrong or not. They are saying that for disobeying the order of the Federal High Court by going ahead with that convention, they were wrong. And that was what they did yesterday. So they said, well, it doesn't affect the nominations of Atiku and co. If you have a body that was not properly constituted, that now supervise your presidential's nomination and also send your name to the INEC, your guess is as good as
mine.
As mine. So let's wait for that. Let's wait for the Supreme Court. They said they were going to the Supreme Court, but like I said, this is a judicial matter, and at the end of the day, it is the judiciary that will determine the final position as far as this matter is concerned.
What's your take on the judiciary? Setting aside court orders, setting aside issues as it concerns, politicking and all of this as it concerns our primaries. Within different political parties. What do you sense of? What do you make of it? And also the fact that many Nigerians still say, regardless of what's going on, these people will still fall into the ballot paper. But do we really need the judiciary, enabling or just coming into play when it comes to politics?
Yeah, the judiciary is part of the democratic process. They are part of it. Why will you blame the judiciary when the parties, the politicians are not comporting themselves very well? They are not playing by the rules of the game. So when there's an aggrieved, when some people
sect.
are aggrieved,
Mm.
the only place they can run to is the judiciary to interpret their actions. So the judiciary will not say, "Oh, because we don't want to be part of what is happening, then we should not look into the complaint of politicians or political parties." And like I said, when there is disagreement, constitutional disagreement within the three arms of government, it is the judiciary that interprets whether who is wrong and who is right. And like I said, the judiciary is part of the political process, and that is why even after the election, when people are aggrieved, they will go back to the
court
judiciary to determine whether election was properly conducted
or not.
So the judiciary is part of the democratic process. But the fact that you have several court cases that has to do with primaries, elections in court, is not the fault of the judiciary. It is the fault of the politicians themselves. It is the fault of the political parties themselves. But whether the judgment being given by the judiciary is credible or not,
that's another issue.
That's another issue. Some people said, "Oh, the judiciary has become." Some people allege that the judiciary has become cash and carry. That you can even, in the middle of the night, get a court order to restrain your opponents from contesting elections. You will also get a counter order. So in a way, you might want to believe, because at the end of the day, you have a court of equal jurisdictions giving the same different judgment, and which is not normal in a democratic setup. But I am saying that the judiciary is part of the democratic process, that you wouldn't blame them for interfering in what is happening in our democratic process, because they have a responsibility to determine who is right and who is wrong whenever there's a dispute among parties to an issue.
All right. We've got a question here. I was going to touch on it, but now that the question has come forth, this one's asking from Lugbe, saying that federal government suspends WAEC and NECO fee hike. Was there a reason for the hike in the first place, and is this something that will still happen probably if this administration wins the next election?
Like they said, they were not saying they were stopping it. They say we are suspending it, which means that they might come back with it after they have after the election.
Like a legend.
Maybe after the election, they will come back again and say this is exactly what's happening. But for a country where we have huge millions of children out of school, increasing school fees will compound the problem. This is at a time when we are saying that education should be free at the primary and secondary school level. So why increasing? Do you know what 50,000 naira is means to several family? Imagine a civil servant that is receiving 70,000 at the end of the month. Maybe he has about 4 or 5 children that are going to write WAEC, and his salary at the end of the month is 70,000 naira. How will such person cope? So I think that is the problem. But you and I might say, "Oh, how much is 50,000 naira?" Well, people can afford it. Yes, you and I might be able to afford it, but there are millions of people in this country that cannot afford it, especially when we are being told that about 67% of Nigerians are living below poverty level.
line.
So I think that is the problem. So if we have a government that is serious, that is committed, that is responsive about getting more children to go to school, I think it was a right thing for them to have put off that issues.
Okay.
But rather than putting it off, I think they should just stop it. But some people might argue, like you were saying just now, you said, "Look, how much did you pay for your wife?"
Yes, I
many
very
years ago.
significant.
But there might be a justification to say, "Oh,
Things have also increased.
what was the value of that money you pay at that time?
Exactly.
What is the value of naira today?"
Exactly.
Maybe you must have paid maybe about 10 naira at that time when you enroll for your WAEC. But you'll be surprised. The value of 10 naira then might be equivalent of almost about 100,000 naira now.
No.
So there might be justification for the increment based on the value of our currency in Nigeria today. But That is not an excuse.
Mm.
We can afford to even remove payment. We can say, oh, we're going to make enrollment for WAEC and NECO free for
Free.
all Nigerians. The federal government
Just
can
to
do it.
encourage people to go to school.
They can do it.
Mm.
Look at the millions they are paying. They are wasting in so many things that are not necessary. So if you invest it in Nigerians, so what is wrong with that?
Mm.
So I think they should just stop it once and for all, rather than saying, "Oh, we are putting it off for now."
Especially now that they're trying to encourage or create this system where it's 12 years straight up, no longer GS1
exactly,
and SS3. If
exactly.
you want to encourage people to go to
Yes,
school.
go to school. That was what we went through in our time. Where we spent 6 years in primary school, then 5 years in secondary school. That's what we went through during our days, and it was seamless.
Yeah, seamless.
So
you don't have to break it,
exactly.
into two.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Daniel from Lukogoma says, "Good morning, doctor in the studio. What about Dangote smiling to the bank? It feels like he's not going to frown at this point. 2026 belongs to Dangote. With the report right now that Dangote dollar sales fuel hike, fears many Nigerians.
When the oil price went down in the global market the other day,
yes.
So there was a huge pressure on Dangote and other marketers to also
reduce pump price.
And there was this forth and back issues, and they were invited by the federal government and said, look, what do we do? So while they were on that, the price went up again. Just yesterday, we were told that it's about $80.
Yes.
Per barrel now. So which means that Dangote is also thinking about increasing the price again. But yesterday, I bought about a liter for 1,000. Almost 1,200 in a filling station. And so there was this idea that, we should reduce it to about 800 naira.
Yes.
But now the price has gone up again. And then they said, look, I can no longer cope. Now I'm going to be selling my product in dollars. In other words, he's going to be selling his refined product
in dollars.
In dollars to the marketers.
In Nigeria.
But that means the marketer will have to also determine the value of dollars they are buying from Dangote to be able to peg their prices
and make profits.
Because they are not for the Christmas now. So, and that is the problem. So if Dangote is going to be selling in dollars, it means that the federal government will also be selling crude to him in dollars. So at the end of the day, we're going to compound the entire problem. But I think this is where the federal government can intervene. They have a responsibility to ensure that even though the sector has been commercialized, is the forces of markets that determine the prices of petroleum products now. But the federal government also has a responsibility to intervene,
like cushion the effect,
and see how it will not affect you and I. Because at the end of the day, Dangote is a businessman. The marketers are also business entity, and but at the end of the day, what the federal government should be interested in is ensuring that the market or the business transaction between Dangote and the marketers, do not affect the ordinary Nigerians. So the federal government has a right to intervene, and they also have a right to also protect the interests of Nigerians.
But do you also see prices, going to 800 naira anytime soon, especially with Iran and US pegging?
Yes.
US pegging 20% tariff.
Exactly. That's the case. So
yes.
Until we are able to resolve this Cold War in the Middle East, especially the war between US and Iran, so we are not going to be able to say, oh, this is how much we are going to be selling petrol, per liters now. So we can't determine that. Because whether we like it or not, you should know that this product is determined by the global market. So the global market, the price of petrol or petroleum products at the global market will determine how much we are going to sell, or how Dangote is going to sell his product in Nigeria, or how other marketers will also sell their product in Nigeria, including the NNPC. But so we shouldn't blame the marketers or Dangote, on other marketers like NNPC. But I think the problem is the crisis in the Middle East between Iraq and the US. So once we're able to solve that, then we can now begin to determine how much we should be selling our product in our local market. Okay. So I think that is the issue. And the Federal Commission, the Federal Consumer Commission agencies,
that's FCCPC.
FCCPC also raised that issue the other day. I said, look, if we are having a low price at the global market, So the marketers also have a responsibility to also reduce the price.
But it takes them a long time. Like the global oil price fell a few weeks ago, and it felt like the prices of fuel moved the needle.
I agree with you.
Yes.
I agree with you. But marketers are only like that. Even in the US, it got to a point when the Donald Trump also threatened
Yes.
that he was going to personally intervene before those guys were forced to reduce their
They
price.
just want to keep making profits.
Exactly. That's capitalists for you. Some of them are very wicked. So even in US, the same thing happened. Donald Trump has to issue a threat and say, look, if you don't do this, then there will be consequences. I think that was what the FCCPC also did, and also said, look, you need to reduce the price, because whether we like it or not, we need to protect the interests of the ordinary people. So business people are like that. When you increase the price today, it will take them 1 hour to increase the price.
Exactly.
But when the price now,
we could be there for a whole month.
For 2 months,
And
they
nothing
won't
will
say
happen.
anything about it.
Yes.
But that's why you have regulators, and the regulators were very slow in
swinging into action,
in responding to such bad behavior.
Yeah.
But I think regulators and other consumer agencies also have a responsibility to keep on monitoring what is happening at the global market and ensure that the local marketers also comply with what is happening.
Okay.
And that's the way we can protect Nigerians.
Yes.
Hopefully.
If they actually want to protect us.
Well, it is their responsibility.
It's their responsibility. And sometimes conversations like this would
also
help them.
Create the awareness.
Exactly.
Draw their attention to what is
matters.
happening.
Exactly.
So what we are doing is part of the whole.
It's
part of creating the awareness.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yobata. I know you have to run now. You say you've got a meeting. I've even eaten like 5 minutes into your time, but
okay.
I'm sorry. All right, thank you so much. We've been speaking with Dr. Yobata Wogara. He is the senior editor at This Day Newspaper Group. Thank you so much for joining us live on the roundtable this morning.
Thank you very much.
And helping us understand, better understand some of the stories and, making the headlines this morning. We appreciate you.
Thank you very
Hopefully
much.
we get to see you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
right, it's Clean Beat 91.5 FM Abuja, where music meets clarity. Thank you so much for your messages and also your contribution. We really, really appreciate you. Remember, the roundtable comes up every weekday, Monday through Fridays from 8:30 a.m. We'll be back again tomorrow at 8:30. My name is Ito Hines. 9:22. Stay with Clean Beats all day, every day. Good morning.